You're watching the Auction Network. Welcome back. Auction Network and Fontaine's Auction Gallery are teaming up to bring you the 2008 Important Antique Clock Auction, Saturday, November 8th. The auction begins at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central Time, and AuctionNetwork.com will broadcast all of the action live. More than 250 museum-quality and extremely rare antique clocks are being sold in one of the New England area's biggest events of the year.
Learning clocks and watches takes years. You need to learn mechanics, you need to learn what the movements are and what the cases are, whether the clock is English, whether the clock is American, whether the clock is French. There's many different types and kinds, and whether they're weight-driven or spring-driven.
Fontaine's Auction Gallery is one of the premier auction houses in the New England area, and they've made quite a name for themselves with their antique clock auctions.
The first auction that we had, which included clocks, was a long time ago, obviously, but the whole auction brought in $6,000. The auction that we had in June of this year brought in $1.2 million. So that's the clock market. It's a very aggressive, good market that prices are doing well, and hundreds of people buy these clocks from across the country.
Fontaine set numerous sales records in their clock auction earlier this year. So what do these clocks have that make hardcore collectors spend thousands of dollars?
What makes a good clock is the quality of the clock, the form of the clock case, whether it's in an area of collecting, like I personally like the form and quality of a banjo clock, an American banjo clock, but what makes it quality would be the movement, the hands, the dial, the case, what it's made out of, what type of mechanics it has, a type of escapement, was it weight driven or spring driven. Also, why people collect them would be strictly choice. Some people collect French clocks, some people collect English tall clocks, some people collect American calendar clocks. Good is more in the eye of the beholder. Some people collect novelty clocks that aren't really that good mechanically, but they're interesting to that person for one reason or another.
Another key factor in determining a clock's value is its condition.
As with any antique, these clocks have to be taken care of. If you put them in a climate-controlled atmosphere and you oil them regularly, let's say once a year, these clocks pretty much take care of themselves. But by the same token, if you place them in a damp area or hot and cold fluctuations in the climate, these clocks can be harmed, and they can be harmed to the point where the value can drop in half. If you start having a bad finish problem, or if the dials start to peel, different problems can happen with these clocks, so it's very important if you have these to take good care of them. And it's easy to do. You just have to contact a clock person, expert, and they'll tell you what to do to keep your clock in good shape.
That's how collectors also become good at what they do and good at collecting, is by reading and learning and handling clocks and learning the different types of makers and why one clock would be more collectible than another.
This auction is full of clocks that have been kept in pristine condition. Fontaine's wouldn't have it any other way.
To include a clock in the auction in the catalog session, it basically has to be either a rare clock or a clock that is in really good condition.
Here we have a wonderful large jeweler's regulator with a French pinwheel escapement, sweep second hand, gridiron compensated pendulum rod with a large, massive bob and lyre trimmings. Has a large, massive case, beautiful form, nice surface, just a large, nice clock you'd see in a typical jewelry store 100 years ago. Also in this auction is a wonderful example of a Girandole American banjo clock. This is a weight-driven, pendulum-regulated, later Girandole style American clock with wonderful sidearms, nice eagle, beautiful drop, just a nice example of an American style Girandole. Also in this auction is this E. Howard & Company Model 8 Figure 8 wall clock. This is a weight-driven, pendulum-regulated E. Howard wall regulator. It has reverse painted throat glass, a reverse painted lower door glass, has a wonderful gilt stick, a nicely damaskeened brass pendulum bob. This clock has the very desirable figure 8 shape and form, one of the most desirable that Howard made. This is a rare form, a very difficult clock for any good Howard collector to find, especially in the condition this clock's in. Nice original dial and hands, both trimmings, just a wonderful example of Howard clock making. Howard astronomical regulators are very high precision seconds regulators that E. Howard made by order. They're very high grade. They have very high grade escapements with jeweled pallets, sometimes jeweled bearings, and instead of having a bushing in a bearing, it has a real ruby or a sapphire, which is a very hard surface and of course gives a very smooth running surface for the pivots that go into those bushings. But Howard Astros, they're scarce clock to start with. They're very rare. They're hard to come by. They're coveted by educated collectors that understand the quality of them and understand the rarity and what great timekeepers that they are. They have great form, great quality. They have, of course, fantastic mechanical movements. They usually have very nice single or up to 4-jar mercury pendulums. And they're just a clock that every real American collector would like to have in their collection. They're a clock that does nothing but appreciate. They get scarcer by the day, and they do nothing but go up in value. Right now seems to be that they are about as hot a clock as any clock on the market today, even more so than early American clocks at this point in time. Also in this auction, we have a wonderful example of a wall astronomical E. Howard and Company Boston, Mass. regulator. This is also weight-driven, pendulum regulated, with an astro movement and the proper astro dial. This clock has a walnut case, walnut veneer, and is very similar to the floor standing Model 61 that we are also selling in this auction. This is a large clock with nice form, good quality and condition.
The highlight of the 2008 Important Antique Clock Auction is this stunning E. Howard & Company model number 61 Astronomical Regulator. This beautiful clock was worth about $800 when it was originally made in 1874. It's expected to sell for well over $100,000 and may even challenge the record of $195,000 Fontaine set earlier this year.
This auction has many nice clocks, but surely this is the finest American clock that we have. This is an E. Howard & Company, Boston, Mass. Astronomical Regulator, model number 61, weight-driven, pendulum-regulated clock. This has the Howard Astro movement with jeweled pallets, has a jeweled bushings on the escape wheel, has a beautiful 4-jar mercury pendulum, has a beautiful oversized pendulum bob, has a nice oversized brass pulley, has a beautiful walnut case. The case and all its trimmings are intact, has walnut veneer. The clock is surely a very nice example of a Howard 61 scarce floor model. You're going to have to look long and hard to find an example of a Howard like this. This is truly a beautiful clock and one that Howard was surely proud of when it left the factory.
It's a treasure hunt every day. You never know what you're going to find. Every day that the phone rings, it can be a new experience. We get into attics and cellars where we find things that are sometimes worth, over $100,000 just sitting there. Nobody cares about them. Nobody wants them. They put them up at auction. And a lot of people get rich just finding things in their attic and selling it through an auction.
That does it for the 2008 Important Antique Clock Auction Preview Show. Don't miss what's sure to be a record-breaking auction, courtesy of AuctionNetwork.com and Fontaine's Auction Gallery. It all happens Saturday, November 8th, beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central Time. Auction Network is broadcasting the event live and in real time from Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Log on to AuctionNetwork.com and register for the big event for free. You'll have a front row seat for all the real-time live bidding action. It's the 2008 Important Antique Clock Auction, only on AuctionNetwork.com. All you have to do is watch, bid, and win. To register for future live auctions, go to AuctionNetwork.com.